maybe. Our new topic today is completing the square. It's our new way to solve. Why does this always get messed up? Okay, so like I said before, completing the square is one of the ways that my students really like once they learn the process. So to start with, this is going to feel really bizarre. Okay, it's going to be completely brand new. But it's based on the fact that if we have some pieces of a polynomial, we can make it be a perfect square trinomial. Right, so a perfect square trinomial is when we factor it and it factors into x plus 4 times x plus 4. Okay, x minus 3 times x minus 3, right? A number times itself is a perfect square. Okay, and that's what this process is going to be based on today. Even if you decide today that this isn't your favorite option for solving a quadratic, it's a really important process that comes up in other courses after algebra. Okay, it helps us sort of rearrange things when we want to graph and things like that. Okay, the first thing that we need to know about completing the square is that we do not want it to be set equal to 0. This is the one odd situation where we don't have it equal to 0, and instead we have it in the form x squared plus bx equals c. Okay, so we're not moving that c over like we did when we were solving by factoring. And you'll also notice that a equals 1. Okay, we don't have a value greater than 1 in front. Start simple. Okay, so maybe we have something like x squared plus 6x equals 7. Okay, we would say that this is in the correct form, right? X squared plus bx equals c. We do not want to move this 7 back over. Now, we could move the 7 back over if we wanted to solve by factoring or if we wanted to solve by taking the graph and finding the roots and zeros. Okay, but for completing the square, this is the form we want it in. A is equal to 1, so we're good there. Okay, so here we go. Step 1. We are going to find b. So this is just identifying a value. So what value is sitting in the b position for this problem? 6. That's step 1. Step 2. We are going to take half of that. Right, taking half of a value is the same thing as dividing it by 2. Okay, so 6 divided by 2 is what?
3.
3. Then we are going to take that value and we are going to square it. So what is 3 squared? 9. Okay, these 3 steps right here are the part that makes it possible for us to write this as a perfect square trinomial. So if you mess up one of those first 3 steps, which you can use a calculator, so just make sure you do it right, okay? You have to get this right to be able to turn this into a perfect square trinomial. Okay, so we're going to look at a couple pieces here, sort of interjecting in between the steps. So let's say I had x squared plus 12x plus blank. Okay, and I want to turn this into a perfect square trinomial. Okay, what does b equal? 12. What is half of 12?
6.
What is 6 squared?
36.
So if we added 36 here, multiples of 36 that would add up to 12 if we were to factor this would be 6 and 6.
Yes.
So this would factor into x plus 6 times x plus 6. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so what if I did y squared minus 10y plus blank? Okay, what does b equal?
Negative.
Negative 10, right? Negative 10. What's half of that?
Negative.
Negative 5.
And
What is negative 5 squared?
25.
Positive 25. Okay, so if I did y squared minus 10y plus 25, multiples of 25, that will add up to negative 10, or negative 5 and negative 5. So this would be a y minus 5 times a y minus 5. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so this process here is giving us a piece that we can fill in to turn something into a perfect square trinomial. Sometimes these numbers can get large, so don't be scared to use a calculator. Just make sure if you're typing a negative in your calculator to square it, you put it in the parentheses so you make sure you get out the positive value. Or just use your brain, right? Anything squared is positive. Okay? So once we get this 9 right here, step 4 says that we are going to add it to each side. So I had an equation. What's an equation? What does an equation always have? An equal sign. When we're working with equations, if we do something to one side of the equal sign, we have to do the exact same thing to the other. So we have to add it to both sides. So I had something that said x squared plus 6x equals 7. Okay, but I want to fill this in with a number that I add to it to make it a perfect square trinomial. So I'm going to add that 9 to it. But I can't just throw a 9 in the middle of an equation. Okay, to make that equation still be equivalent, I need to do the exact same thing to the opposite side, because that's how we solve equations. You okay with me there? Can I see blank stares? This is about how I expect you to feel right now. That's okay. Okay. Step 5 says that we are going to factor and simplify. I am telling you right now, you don't actually have to factor. Okay, if you learn what's actually happening and you understand what's actually happening, you won't have to ever factor. Because we forced this to be a perfect square. A perfect square is a number times itself. which we can write with an exponent of 2. Agreed? What two numbers did we say gave us 36 but would add up to 12?
6 and 6.
What two numbers did we say would give us 25 and add up to -10? The number in the middle of our list. So this is always going to factor to the number in the middle of our list. That was a +3. So it's always going to be an X, where in here we fill in that middle number. Okay, and then we're going to simplify the other side. That just means add those, right? What is 7 plus 9? 16.
Wait, where'd you get the 7?
The 7 was already there as part of the equation. The 9 was because if I added the 9 to this side, I had to add it to the other. Okay. Here's where it gets even better. It's okay. Just take a deep breath and just keep following me. Step 6, we want to start solving this now for x. Right? And if we want to solve an equation, we're going to do order of operations backwards. Right? That was our SADMEP, which means parentheses come last. So I can't do anything with this 3 because it's stuck inside the parentheses. But I can undo an exponent of 2. How do we undo an exponent of 2? Square root. So we are now going to square root each side. Because whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So I'm going to square root here. And I'm going to square root there. What is the square root of x plus 3 squared?
X plus 3.
X plus 3, right? These two things just cancel each other out, and I'm left with x plus 3. What is the square root of 16?
4.
What's the square root of 16? Plus or minus 4? We need both of them because we added the square root. It wasn't part of the problem, we added it. This is something we know how to solve. How do we undo adding 3? We subtract 3, so I have to rewrite because I'm going to flip the page. Okay, so I'm going to solve this. I undo adding 3 by subtracting 3. How many numbers is plus or minus 4? 2. Which means this is giving us 2 options that we need to consider. We need to consider positive 4 minus 3. And we need to consider negative 4 minus 3. Okay, do not change the sign of the inverse operation. This 3 stays as subtracting 3. The 4 had 2 signs in front of it, so we have to consider both situations. So what is 4 minus 3? 1. And what is negative 4 minus 3?
That's equals -7.
So we'll get answers of 1 and negative 7. And usually my students are like, oh my gosh, I thought you said students liked this.
I don't know how they do.
I promise. You will like it too. You just need to give it a few times. The reason why students like this is because it's so procedural and it is the exact same thing every single time that once you know the process, you literally don't have to think about much. Okay, so let's see what this looks like without the steps in between. Without me writing in between. Let's say we have x squared plus
24.
8x equals 33. Is this in the correct form to complete the square?
Yes.
Yes. What does b equal?
8.
8. Then we're going to take half of it. What's half of 8? 4.
16.
Then we are going to square it. What is 4 squared?
Positive 16.
16. That's steps 1, 2, and 3. Find b, take half of it, square it. Okay, then we are going to add that to each side. So I'm going to have an x squared plus 8x plus 16
Equals 30.
equals 33 plus 16. Are we doing okay so far? So far, so good? What is 16 plus 33?
49.
49. Okay, now I'm going to factor the left-hand side, but remember, I don't actually have to know how to factor it. It always goes into this format. And I'm always using my middle number. What's my middle number?
4.
Positive 4.
Squared.
Okay, now how do I get rid of that exponent of 2?
Squared.
I'm going to square root.
X plus 4.
What is the square root of 49?
7. Plus minus 7.
Plus or minus 7. Those just cancel out, right? Right, how do I undo adding 4? Subtracting. How many numbers is this? 2. So I'm going to consider both of them. I'm going to consider a positive 7 minus 4. And I'm going to consider a negative 7 minus 4. Bless you. What is a 7 minus 4? 3. What is a negative 7 minus 4? Was that a little bit better?
That's a lot better. That's a lot better.
Right?
Like the other first problem, I didn't like that.
Well, it's just because we're writing the steps in between, right? Once you get the steps, so I want to look at one more here. Y squared minus 12y equals
24.
$28. Okay, so here we go. What's B?
12.
Negative.
Negative 12.
Wait, you can't.
Do what?
Like once you divide it by 2. I'm sorry. You divide it by 2, you get negative 6, but you can't square negative
Yes, you can. You can square it, you just couldn't square root it.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So negative 6 squared is
36.
positive 36.
Add it to both sides.
What are we going to do with that 36?
Add it.
Add it to both sides. I mean, you could rewrite an entire another line. I just don't necessarily need to be able to find that. $28 plus 36 is
64.
64.
X minus 6 squared.
Because it always goes in the same format and it's the middle number.
Square root.
That's minus 6.
Square root.
No,
Okay.
that's minus.
Square root each side. Bless you. Square root of 64 is
8.
Negative.
plus or minus 8.
I wrote it down.
We're catching it faster.
I keep writing it down.
It's
but
okay.
I'm not
I
saying-
forgot why we have
I'm
to have
almost
plus
done.
or minus.
Because 8 times 8 is 64, and negative 8 times negative 8 is 64.
No.
I got it.
Okay. Can we try one on our own?
We're going to here in just a minute once we finish this problem.
Very good. I didn't hear one.
Okay, then what do we do next once we are here?
Consider the two options.
We subtract, or how do we undo subtracting 6?
Add.
Add 6, and then we'll consider both options. Right, so we'll say an 8 plus 6 and a negative 8 plus 6,
Y equals 14.
14 and
Two.
negative 2.